All right, guys, it's Georgia Bama Eve. And I think we just need to talk about it a little bit more and talk about some of the memories of this game of recent.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I want to thank you everydayers for joining us every day. Usually Jimmy, of course, is with me. He's not with me tonight. He's probably out in Tuscaloosa tearing it up. I'm getting ready for the high school scoreboard show, and I just thought, I just got to talk about some of these Georgia games. There was a great article on Bama Online recently about the best Alabama-Georgia games of the recent past. I mean, I guess moderately recent. And it dawned on me, I've been to a lot of those games, so I've got a lot of memories from them for sure. And I certainly have my own ranking for them, but I think I'll just focus on the ones, as we get ready for this monster matchup tomorrow, focus on the ones that are since 2007. I mean, I could talk about the Gene Stallings game back in 1990, his first year. I went to that game, and oddly, I'll never forget this. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution picked Georgia to win 17-16, and that was the exact score. I thought that was weird. Then the next year, 91, Alabama beats Eric Zier and company at night, I believe it was. In 91, I was in school there at the time. It was my freshman year, the first night game in a long time. And then we played them again in 94, and that game was unbelievable. Jay Barker goes off, Tydrick Malone goes off, a lot of big things to remember from that. And as James Crane chimes in, Luke the Mute Robinson, there are probably some people who wish I was on mute now. But, I'm going to focus on the 2007 through 2023 games because those are the ones that make, most of us remember, or most of you out there probably remember. Going back to 2007, I didn't go to that game in Tuscaloosa where we lost in overtime, and I'd rather not talk about the losses very much. So I'm going to leave that one off. But I'm going to go down just the years, and then later on I'll rank them about where I think they stand in terms of this rivalry. The one thing about this game, Rece Davis said it best. There's a new video out there put out by the University of Alabama. It's got the lank overtones. Let all the naysayers know, as you well know. And Rece Davis starts it off. He is speaking with Paul Feinbaum. It's a clip of his having an interview with Paul Feinbaum. And he says, the Georgia-Bama rivalry is one that's born out of excellence, not out of tradition. And I thought, good God, that's exactly the way this thing is. Because frankly, there haven't been a lot of Georgia-Bama games that weren't awesome. I mean, if you want to say the 2015 game wasn't awesome, I'll get to that in a minute. I thought it was awesome for other reasons, and I got a great story for it, so I'll tell you about it later. But I do want to start with 2008, the blackout game. You just remember Cochran and the funeral comments and how fantastic that was. And boy, he was Nostradamus for that, wasn't he? Alabama goes up 31-0 at the half. You think about the freshman wide receiver Julio Jones making a monster catch in that game. The other thing that stands out to me was A.J. Green missed a pretty routine catch, or he caught it and then bobbled it later, and Dante Hightower, who's another freshman, he gets it, and it's a turnover, and A.J. Green was just despondent on the sidelines. And I think it was Holly Rowe that was there, was saying, man, he's almost inconsolable. He was throwing his helmet around. It was just crazy. But the one thing about that game that really let me know, okay, Alabama's about to be good for a while, was even though we had beaten the brakes off of Clemson earlier that year in the Georgia Dome, you could always say at that time Clemson was still Clemsoning, right? Georgia in 2008 was loaded as anybody else was, but they couldn't get over the hump at the time. And what really let me know that we were here to stay was we on about a 3rd and 6 or something like that. We were close to the goal line. We run a draw. Everybody in the world thought we were going to pass. We win a draw to Roy Upchurch, and he scores. And that's when I said, man, they're on their heels, and we're going to have college football on its heels. It was just, an amazing, amazing game, and then really set the tone for the year. And the other thing that was sort of foreboding was we had a special teams miscue. If you remember, I think Georgia returned a punt for a touchdown late. And if you go through Nick Saban's career at Alabama, think about how many games were affected one way or another, or even if the game wasn't necessarily affected by it, it was like a stain on a big win. How many times somebody returned a punt or returned a kick for a touchdown, or mixed field goals, something like that. That for all the greatness that was Nick Saban, special teams more than anything, as much as he could have a bugaboo, were his bugaboo. Then move on to 2012. Let me tell you, I have another story about that I don't feel comfortable telling, but that game was unbelievable. Until 2018, this was the best SEC title game of all time. I would say it's the second best SEC title game of all time. There'll be some people that tell you 92 is better, and I was at 92 as well. And it was freezing cold, and Antonio Langham make that interception was unbelievable, and the atmosphere was crazy. But let's remember it was Legion Field. Let's remember that it was freezing cold. Let's remember part of that adds to the allure of it, part of it sort of and the lore, but part of it also sort of wipes some of that away. I mean, the Georgia Dome's always 72 and nice. So 92 is great. It's probably my third favorite SEC title game of all time. But 2012, unbelievable. And here's another trend that began. And I saw somebody on Bama Online put this up about receivers, but I don't think he necessarily focused on their freshman receivers. Another freshman receiver, just like Julio Jones making the big catch in 2008, Amari makes that huge catch for the touchdown. And people forget that he also had an unbelievable catch over the kid's name was Rambo, I believe, for Georgia. And he out-jumped him about at the 50-yard line on a it shouldn't even been a 50-50 ball. The Georgia guy had the position. It should have been a 60-40 ball. And it's just like Amari said, I'm going to jump however high I need to jump. And he went up and got it. He was unbelievable. Then, of course, TJ Yeldon getting that first down on a 4th and 3 or 4th and 4, something like that. We run not a draw. We just run it right off a right tackle. And he gets hit early, but he's able to push through it again. Another freshman. And, of course, that was also a game where Eddie Lacy was still Eddie Lacy at the time. We were fine with his being a little overweight at the time because he was still plastering people. And so, yeah, he was a little overweight at the time, but he was still running by folks. I mean, Eddie Lacy was a dude at the time, and it was good to see he had a big, long run in that game. That one had a lot of NFL people in it, and it was a sign of things to come as well. So, yeah, I'm going to talk about some of these other ones starting in 2015. I don't know how many of y'all went to that game, but that one was a ton of fun. The weather stunk, but it was a lot of fun for other reasons. And certainly I'll get into that, but I do want to tell you about a couple of our sponsors. First of all, I want to tell you about Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5 APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. That's unbelievable. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of the high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month, y'all. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold, Robinhood.com/gold. Terms do apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. All right, want to get into the 2015 game. And this is the game where, I have 3 friends. I have 2 other friends about my age and one of their sons, and we pick an away game every year and go to it. And this year was Wisconsin. Well, in 2015, it was Georgia. And that game was highly anticipated, a little less highly anticipated because Alabama had lost to Ole Miss, if you remember. And they had lost to Ole Miss mainly because Lane Kiffin decided to make a quarterback change before the game. And Jake Coker came in later, as you all know, and almost pulled Alabama back to the Ole Miss win. Well, Jake Coker now was the starter again, and everybody was a little up in the air. I mean, Alabama was an underdog, a slight underdog, kind of like they are for tomorrow, even though that seems to be changing. And the rain really started kicking in, almost immediately. And Georgia goes down, and if I remember right, they kick a field. No, they may have missed a field goal. They either kick a field goal, miss a field goal. I can't remember. But it's about a 3-3 thing for a little while. And then Derrick Henry busts loose for a long one. And you could see the faces for everybody of Georgia change. I mean, they thought we would come in and lay down. I mean, this was going to be the revenge for the blackout game in 08. And it turned out that Alabama just put a whooping on them. And yet again, another freshman wide receiver in Calvin Ridley makes a monster play. He makes a huge catch from Jake Coker about 50 yards on a TD in the rain, mind you. I mean, it wasn't like regular rain. This was Forrest Gumpish rain. I mean, this was coming sideways and from the ground and every which way. And he makes an unbelievable catch. He had toasted his defender, and he makes it, and it was put on the money. I mean, perfectly from Jake Coker. And on top of that, Jake Coker took a shot. I don't know how many of you remember that, but you can – he gets plastered. Probably should have been a penalty, and I think if it happened tomorrow, it would be a penalty in this new age of college football. But instead, Coker just got up. I think he was bleeding a little bit from it. He gets up and he pumps his fist, and that just sort of ended it. Of course, Minkah Fitzpatrick also with the block punt. And Derrick Henry, I wouldn't say that kicked off his Heisman career, but I will say it sort of let people know he was there. I think his Heisman really didn't get going until about the LSU game when he outshone Leonard Fournette. Then, of course, there's the 2017 game, and gosh, this game was I got mixed emotions. I mean, the first half stunk. It was awful. It was, borderline unwatchable. We had watched Jalen Hurts regress. I mean, he had just gotten a little worse and a little worse, and his passing had gotten a little worse and a little worse as the season wore on. And then at Auburn, he was kind of exposed. I mean, he had a touchdown pass, if I remember, to Jerry Jeudy in that game, but he just couldn't get anything going. And his passing just wasn't there. And meanwhile, I was invited to practice with a friend of mine, and I got to go see, of course, both quarterbacks throwing it around a little bit. Tua let some go that I said, I don't know how we're not playing this cat. I'd already fallen in love with Tua. I'd seen him, of course. I think he had a touchdown against Tennessee or two. He had a touchdown against Vanderbilt, I know, on a great play. I'd already seen him do some things that were just like, wow, this kid's awesome. And I just hope we can keep him around. And then he comes in after halftime. I really didn't think Nick Saban would pull the trigger. And that, again, that shows his greatness. And he comes in, and, of course, he does a little bit okay, and then he throws a pick, and then Alabama gets a pick right back. If you remember Raekwon Davis, who had been shot, I think, earlier in the year, he gets a pick, and unbelievably, because it bounces off a player's helmet. But just an amazing game. And, of course, Devontae Smith has one catch in that game. That's one of the biggest catches of all time in college football history. And people will always put that game probably as their number one Bama-Georgia game, especially Bama fans, especially new age Bama fans. There may be one back in the 60s or 70s I don't know about, but I wasn't old enough. I don't. I put this next one as my all-time favorite game. And I'll tell you why. Look, in 2018, when Alabama played Georgia, and Alabama was running through people, right? I mean, we were just smoking everybody in 2018. Nobody could hang with us, and Georgia comes in, bit of a chip on their shoulder. And you think – we got a turnover early in that game, and you think, okay, we're just going to blow them out. And Georgia goes up 21-7. And Alabama's fighting and clawing to get back, and Tua just can't get it going. Tua looked a little in that game like he looks sometimes in the NFL now. That's, I guess maybe we could have seen that coming, but I'm not saying he's not going to eventually be a good a good NFL quarterback, but he sometimes it's like he loses confidence or something. He just wasn't himself. And of course, then he gets his ankle stepped on, right? He did make an unbelievable pass, or not unbelievable. It was a great pass on a rope to Jalen Waddle, which again, Jalen Waddle, another freshman making a big play in a Georgia Bama game. So far, and again, you see where I'm going with this in the third segment. You got Julio as a freshman kicking butt. You got Amari as a freshman kicking butt. You got Calvin Ridley as a freshman. You got in 17, it was Devontae Smith, of course. Now, Henry Ruggs also had a touchdown. Jerry Jeudy had a big catch. But, I mean, it was Devontae Smith is the guy who's remembered for the Georgia game. And now in 2018, you got Waddle as a freshman. That's odd. I mean, in a, 10-year period that 5 freshman receivers, and arguably 7 if you count Jeudy and Ruggs, making these unbelievable impacts in the game against one team that you don't see on a regular, you're not supposed to see on a regular basis. You only see them because of happenstance in terms of they're making the SEC title game or the national championship game. Regardless, Hurts comes in. I'm going to tell you, I love 2nd and 26. I do. I was there. I remember clear as day. Georgia kicked that long field goal, and I said, "We can't. We're doomed." I mean, his making that. I mean, we couldn't make that. Papanastos had already flubbed one earlier in regulation, and you're thinking, "God, this is going to stink to lose this way." And then we take the sack, and I remember grabbing my coat because it was a little cold then too. And I told my wife, I said, "I want to be ready to get out of here. That's what I really want to do." I had no hope. And when he let that pass go, I remember so distinctly because it was in the other corner of the end zone I was in. I remember seeing the ball and seeing him and thinking, my eyes are deceiving me. There's got to be a defender there. And of course, he catches it. The rest is history. But when Hurts came in for 2018, and you think about the redemption, and you think about all that Hurts had been through. He had led Alabama to a national championship game in 2016, and he had done everything he could do. And the defense sort of let him down on that final drive against Clemson, pick play notwithstanding. And then he plays pretty well in 2017, but he starts to get a little worse. Meanwhile, Tua's right on his heels. Everybody's clamoring for him. He gets in there, and he's the hero. And then, he's not the starter anymore. He plays some, but it's sort of like a token starter, right? I mean, Nick Saban was like, "Hey, I'm not really saying either one of these guys are a starter." And we all knew who the starter was, right? And then he comes in and he does the things that you would suspect Tua would do. He's making these passes to the tight end that are over the middle, and he's finding Jalen Waddle on a rollout, and he's doing all these things he's hitting Jerry Jeudy on that pass. That's not an easy pass for the touchdown that he had. And then he makes the final big run, the draw play, just when we thought he had Tua Tagovailoa'd himself, had morphed into Tua Tagovailoa. He reverts to Jalen Hurts and scores that touchdown. I got chills talking about it right now. I'm telling you, it's one of my favorite all-time Alabama memories is that game. That's my favorite Bama-Georgia game of all time. Going to talk a little bit about these previous couple of games that we've played with Georgia here in this final segment, and just reiterate my prediction, and we'll go from there. But yeah, we're right here on game eve, and I just felt like talking about it a little more. But of course, I want to tell you about FanDuel. FanDuel's the best. Y'all know we love FanDuel here at Locked On. We always have. Jimmy and I have, and it's just awesome. And NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sports book for now and forever. I added that last line. Okay, So then you get to 2020, and I love that game because it gave us a lot of highlights. I mean, the long pass play to Waddle was awesome, and Waddle's speed, the way he just blows by everybody, is just insane. It's still insane to watch him do it on Sundays. John Mechie with some nice touchdown catches in that game. He sort of made his mark that, hey, I'm going to be here for a bit. I know that Devontae Smith had a touchdown in that game, and again, that wasn't necessarily his coming out party to win the Heisman, but it didn't hurt. And the fact that Alabama was just able to take care of Georgia, again, I don't believe this. Like, I don't think the 2020 season, the national championship, was dampened at all in the sense of COVID. People talk about it. Well, it doesn't really count. First of all, no team had ever played that many SEC teams in 1 year. No team had definitely never played that many SEC teams in 1 year, and also played Notre Dame and Ohio State. And Alabama went undefeated. And you say, well, Ohio State only played 7 games. Yeah, that bolsters my argument. They didn't have any more time to get beat up. That's 8 fewer games they had to play, or 7 fewer games, whatever it would have been. So I still love that 2020 team. Then in 2021, the SEC title game, that one was a lot of fun too. I mean, it's not necessarily as crazy as some of these other ones that I've talked about, but Bryce Young going off, Jamison Williams, oh, he was so good. I mean, he was a bigger Waddle. I mean, he didn't have the shimmy necessarily, but the speed, I'd love to see those two race. A couple of his catches were just fantastic. The way Bryce Young put everything right where it needed to be was incredible. And look, I know Georgia fans can probably say this too about some guys that were hurt here and there. But if Jamison Williams didn't hurt in the national championship game in 2021, I really believe Alabama wins. And I'm not trying to be if Colt hadn't gotten hurt guy. I'm just saying what I think. Kudos to Georgia for winning it. That's just awesome. But Jamison was kicking their butt again when he got hurt, sort of in the open field. And then finally, last year of course, you're talking about 2021 national championship game. They win. More power to them. We still had a shot. Ajay Hall could have been one of those freshman receivers that did something, but he didn't. And gosh, now that I think about it, I guess I'm trying to think about Mechie. No, Mechie was not Mechie was he a freshman then? I'm going to have to look back. I don't remember. But in 2023, last year, that game was a lot of fun, and because of how Milroe looked. And Milroe getting a lot of people off his back. He's still got some people on his back now, which is unbelievable to me. I mean, if you're a Bama fan and you're not on the Milroe train, what the hell is wrong with you? But he is what he is, and he played a fantastic game, and I think he's going to play a fantastic game tomorrow, and that's what this video ultimately comes down to, is talking about tomorrow. And, I'm watching Cam Ward in Miami tonight some, and boy, that cat's pretty strong. Miami will probably eventually Miami this thing, and they will, maybe have 2, 3, 4 losses or whatever. But Cam Ward is a dude, and thank goodness Hugh Freeze didn't want to spend the money for him, right? But Jalen Milroe can be a dude too, and I think the winner of this ball game, rightly or wrongly, is going to move to at no worse than second in everybody's straw Heisman poll. Now, Milroe's already there for some folks because really some of it's by default because nobody else is really taking the reins outside of Cam Ward. But if Milroe has a big game tomorrow, I think he would even surpass Cam Ward because it obviously would be the best win of the season for anybody. I think that's bar none, no questions asked. Same thing can be said for Carson Beck, that if he beats Alabama tomorrow in that environment, in this environment, I'm telling y'all, I've talked to Jimmy's in Tuscaloosa right now. Everything's electric. Everything's going bananas. I heard one of the personalities in Tuscaloosa on the national sports show today talk about how in Tuscaloosa, Monday felt like a Friday. Everybody's been so geeked up about this. I guess the one drawback is I just hope that we still have all the energy left. If we don't, use a 5-hour energy, another sponsor of the program. But, I'm going to stick with my prediction, 27-24 Alabama. And is that what I said? I think that's what I said. I'll go 27-24 Alabama regardless. And I think it's just going to be a lot of fun. What I think Alabama needs to do, and wouldn't everybody love to say this? I think Alabama needs to get out to a lead. I think Georgia is so good when they play with a lead. They're so good at it. And coming from behind, I don't know how they are with that yet. So let's make them figure that out. Let's get ahead by 2 scores, 10-0. I'll take 10-0. And then if it goes, 10-3, then make it 13-3. If it goes 13-10, then go 20-10. And just keep Georgia on their heels is what I really want to do. Because if Georgia gets ahead, if they get ahead 10-0, I'm going to be really worried at any point in the game. I'm talking first quarter. So I think Georgia's very good at being a front runner, and everybody says that like it's a negative. No, if you're good at being a front runner, you're usually in the front, right? Like people only know that you're a good front runner if you're in the front a lot. And so Alabama's a pretty good front runner. I'm fine being a good front runner. I don't want to have to come from behind every deadgum game. I want to be able to do it when I need to, but I also know every time you need to, you can't. I'd rather you have the lead and deal with it that way. Yeah, every now and again, you're going to have a comeback or something like that. So be it. I can live with one comeback with all these national championships I have. All right, that's going to do it. I just wanted to throw something out there, man. I appreciate everybody jumping on board and, just checking this out. You guys, please subscribe to the podcast. Really would appreciate that. Helps us a lot. And Jimmy and I do plan to have a podcast after the game, assuming Alabama wins. If they lose, we'll probably wait till Sunday, sort of, drown in our sorrows a little bit. But both of us, I know Jimmy only has to walk to his condo after the game. I'm going to have to go back to Birmingham. And so it may be a little late after the game if Alabama wins. But hopefully you guys will join us then too, because there's a lot of great football on late tomorrow night. I think the BYU game is late tomorrow night, so in Oregon maybe. So y'all just hang tight. And we will catch you then. Until then, roll tide.